Donald Trump is creating his own social media platform. Joe Biden still can't figure out the immigration crisis. And Jordan Peterson fires back at Bernie Sanders. And I have a lot to say about that. Before we get into our lead story, I just want to thank everyone who has already subscribed to my channel. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and do so. Share it with your friends and family. Also, please take a moment to hit that like button. It really does allow my videos to get out there to others through the YouTube algorithm. And also, please make sure you hit the bell button so you are notified whenever we upload a video, which is every Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our lead story of the day, which is also breaking news, is the 45th president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, hasn't just been golfing, but he's been meeting with various companies at Mar-a-Lago to establish and create a new social media platform for all conservatives, left and middle. But this news is coming from Howard Kurtz of Media Buzz on Fox News with a former Trump campaign senior advisor, Jason Miller. Let's see what they both have to say.
Donald Trump obviously has been booted off Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, which were a great megaphone for him. Does he plan to try to get back on social media, perhaps with some new outfit?
You know, Harry, this is really interesting, the fact that the president's been off of social media for a while, because his press releases, his statements have actually been getting almost more play than he ever did on Twitter before. I'm not sure if that's because the length of them are a bit longer. I even had one reporter say that she thought it was much more elegant, the way that the president was able to communicate his thoughts, and it very much looked more presidential in that longer form. But I do think that we're going to see President Trump returning to social media in probably about 2 or 3 months here with his own platform. And this is something that I think will be the hottest ticket in social media. It's going to completely redefine the game, and everybody is going to be waiting and watching to see what exactly President Trump does, but it will be his own platform.
This new social media platform that Trump is creating is going to be a massive hit with conservatives as well as Republicans, because finally they will hopefully have a platform that they can go to that's not going to censor them or deplatform them. Now, I am interested to see what happens when this social media platform goes live, because we already saw what happened to a similar platform, meaning Parler, and how the left handled that. If you're not familiar with Parler, Parler was very similar to Twitter, where it was a lot looser than Twitter in terms of guidelines and what you could say on it, but that's what we expect from a social media platform. But what Google, Amazon, and Apple did was they banded together and ultimately deplatformed Parler from their platforms so people couldn't gain access to it. Google also removed Parler from people ultimately being able to access Parler through websites or other avenues. And on top of that, Amazon wouldn't allow Parler to publish as well. And so ultimately Parler was beaten out by its competition. And so I'm curious to kind of see how the left is going to handle this new social media platform, as well as having Trump ultimately be one of the leaders of this platform, because we all know that the left hates Trump. But this is massive news for conservatives. It is massive news for hopefully free speech if Trump does allow this social media platform to kind of be loose on its guidelines in terms of what people can say and do on its platform. In boundaries, right? There are some things that I believe shouldn't necessarily be out there for the public, whether that's nudity, pornography, things like that. I don't believe should be on social media. But by far and large, I do think that ultimately people should be able to say whatever they want without restrictions. And I hope this is the social media platform that will do it, and ultimately the social media platform that will crush its competitors like Facebook and Twitter. Our next news story is once again dealing with the Biden administration and the immigration crisis that is happening at the U.S.-Mexico border. I promised all of you that I would keep you up to date on everything that is happening. Well, we have a story here from Emily Zanotti of the Daily Wire, and she is titling it, Biden admin to spend $86 million on hotel rooms for migrants amid border crisis. She starts off by saying the Biden administration is reportedly set to spend $86 million in taxpayer funds to purchase hotel rooms to house migrants who are coming over the United States-Mexico border in record numbers. In addition to an ongoing child migrant crisis, which has exploded in previous weeks and is now overwhelming customs and border protection facilities with over 13,000 unaccompanied minor children immigrants currently in custody, is reportedly deteriorating conditions. The Biden administration is struggling to manage migrant families, many of whom are seeking asylum. The growing numbers of migrant families are trying to come to the U.S. in addition to already overwhelming number of kids crossing the border without their parents or legal guardians appear to be straining government resources. The Biden administration has awarded an $86 million contract for hotel rooms near the border to hold around 1,200 migrant families who cross the U.S.-Mexico border, DHS officials confirmed to Axios per the outlet. The contract through Endeavors, a Texas-based nonprofit, is for 6 months, but could be extended and expanded. The hotels will be near the border areas, including Arizona and Texas. Well, isn't that just lovely? So not only now are we having to build new facilities to house all these people, we're having to pay for their water, the utilities, the electricity, the education, the food, the showering, all these things that taxpayers have to pay for. And now Joe Biden wants to sit here and send all these migrants, or at least some of them, 1,200 of them, to hotel rooms, which the taxpayers have to pay for. And I love how it says, oh, the possibility of being extended or expanded. We all know that's going to happen, because whenever the government takes control of something, they always expand it. They always extend it, because the government loves power and they love spending the taxpayers' dollars, which is exactly what they're doing here. But again, this isn't a crisis, folks. It's just a challenge. It's just a problem that they're having. It's not a crisis. Don't take it from me, though. Take it from Jen Psaki, who was just asked this from a reporter earlier this week.
At this point, is this a crisis at the border?
Look, I don't think we need to sit here and put new labels on what we have already conveyed is challenging. What we have conveyed is a top priority for the president, what our policy teams are working on every single day. There was a trip to the border this weekend. They are working over the course of every day since then on putting in place policies that can help address what we're seeing and help ensure that we are keeping these kids safe and moving them as quickly as possible from Border Patrol facilities to shelters where they can have access to educational resources, health resources, mental health resources, legal aid, etc.
There you have it. Well, we're not going to parcel words and we're not going to put labels on things, even though we love labeling conservatives as racist, bigots, sexist, homophobes. But we're not going to mess with the wording right now as long as we're in power. We'll kind of sidestep that whole issue, but we're not going to call it anything other than a challenge or a problem. It is not a crisis. Again, you heard it from the horse's mouth. But the other thing I want to touch on here is that she's talking about how the Biden administration has been meeting every single day to create policies or find solutions to this immigration crisis that is happening. Folks, there's 168 hours in a week. They've been in office for 2 months and they can't figure out a solution to all of this. It's crazy. And Joe Biden still thinks that these people aren't coming over because of him, even though they're on tape saying, hey, I wouldn't come over if Trump was president, but because Biden's president, we're coming on over. Don't believe me, but believe it from an actual migrant that's coming over. We have tape. Let's roll it.
This significant surge coming after President Biden ended Donald Trump's so-called Remain in Mexico policy, requiring asylum seekers to wait there for their court proceedings. Since then, many of those tent cities along the Mexican border have emptied out as people start streaming in. We were there when a bus of 56 asylum seekers arrived at Casa Alitas, a Catholic charity shelter in Tucson. Men, pregnant women, and children stepping off the bus with only what they could carry. This father, who asked that we not show his face, traveled to Mexico from Brazil with his wife and 3 young kids before crossing the border. Would you have tried to do this when Donald Trump was president?
Definitely not. Definitely. We had the chance, the same violence that is going on today was there last year. We used to watch the news, and I definitely won't do this.
So did you come here because Joe Biden was elected president?
Basically. The main thing was the violence in my country. And the second thing, I think, was Joe Biden.
And this is just how out of touch Biden and his administration is. He genuinely thinks that they're not coming over because of him. And don't believe me. Again, here's the clip of Biden actually saying that they're not saying this.
A lot of the migrants coming in saying they're coming in because you promised to make things better. It seems to be getting worse by the day. Was it a mistake not to anticipate this surge?
Well, first of all, there was a surge the last 2 years and 19 and 20, there was a surge as well.
This one might be worse.
No, well, it could be, but here's the deal. We're sending back people to, first of all, the idea that Joe Biden said come, because I heard the other day that they're coming because they know I'm a nice guy and I won't do
They're
what Trump
saying
did.
this.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. They're not.
I'll tell you what, folks, this stuff is nuts, man, and they don't have a clue on how to fix this. Mind you, these are the people that are meeting every day, and the solutions they're coming up with is, one, build more facilities, or two, take these people and put them in hotel rooms at the expense of the taxpayer, costing them minimum $86 million. And by the way, they have another solution that they're talking about possibly implementing, is taking some migrants from the U.S.-Mexico border, putting them on a plane and flying them to the northern states, to the Canadian border, and holding them up there. These are the solutions that these people, our leaders of the free world, are putting in place. And it's just like, all I'm thinking is, man, wouldn't it be some, you know what, if these people somehow broke loose out of the facilities on the northern border and started going into Canada and immigrating illegally up there? Wouldn't that be something? That would be the icing on the cake on this whole immigration crisis. But these are the people that are putting stuff in place, and it makes sense because we have a president that doesn't have a clue what's going on. Again, he literally doesn't know his name at times. He doesn't know where he's at. He doesn't know his own staff personnel. I wouldn't be surprised if he woke up in the morning and didn't realize that he was actually president of the United States, that he actually won. But again, this is a guy that can't walk up a flight of stairs. I hesitated from putting that in. I'm not even going to show the video because it is funny. It is funny watching that happen. But more than it being funny, it's really sad, man. It's really sad to see him deteriorate. Guys, he's a human being, okay? I understand that he's a Democrat. I understand that he's kind of crazy at times. But the man fell going up some stairs in front of everybody. I mean, that's embarrassing. It's all over the news. It's just really hard to see a man like this deteriorate the way he is, and the Democrats pushing him out there. Man, this is bad, but this is the best they have to offer, guys. This is the best that the Democrats had to offer. And there might be some things we didn't like from Trump, the things that he said, but the man was all there, and at least the man squashed a lot of the immigration issues that we have. But the Biden administration, they don't have a clue on how to fix this. This thing is going to go on for months, if not years. They don't plan on increasing border security. They don't plan on establishing the border wall, meaning starting up the construction again. They don't plan on doing any of that. So expect me to talk about this a lot in the coming months, as well as even just the weeks, because this stuff is just nuts. And I'm curious on what other loony stuff they're going to try to put in place to try and fix this situation at the U.S.-Mexico border. And our last news story of the day comes from our friends over at Louder with Crowder. If you're not a member of the Mug Club, I highly suggest you go over and do so. They're doing great things over there, especially with investigative journalism in regards to the election fraud, or at least abnormalities within the election. So again, please go over and become a Mug Club member today. But they title it, Jordan Peterson Exposes Bernie Sanders' Economic Ignorance with a Single Tweet. Will this guy just go away? I mean, he's like Hillary Clinton. He just keeps coming back. Nobody wants you around. Nobody likes your socialist ideas other than socialists, and I guess Democrats as well. But it is a little odd that this guy continually craps on the United States of America for being capitalist, but he still lives in America under a capitalist country and has been suckling at a capitalist country's teat for his entire life. If he enjoys socialist ideas so much, why doesn't he just pick up and move to another country? He has the finances for it. The guy has like 2 or 3 houses in a boat, like, or a ship or a yacht, whatever you want to call it. The guy makes good money, so he could sell those assets and just get up and leave and go to a socialist country and be happy over there. So it's very odd to me that he's been suckling off the taxpayer's teat, off a capitalistic nation or society for his entire life, and he's just constantly crapping on it. But he has here saying, maybe it's a radical idea. An open socialist saying maybe it's a radical idea. Yes, anything that comes out of your mouth is probably a radical idea because you're an open socialist, which is radical within itself. So yes, it's probably going to be radical, but it says, but I believe a job should lift workers out of poverty, not keep them in it. So a couple things about this statement, and a lot of people aren't going to like this because it puts the responsibility on the individual, and people just tend not to like to take responsibility for their actions or what they do. But if a job is genuinely keeping you in poverty, that's not the employer's fault. That's your fault as an individual or as an employee for staying at a job that's paying you so low that you're literally in poverty. Or the other end of it is that your skill level is so low that that is what your wage is worth. At that point, it is still not the employer's fault. You agreed to that wage based on what you thought you were worth. So you think that you are worth a wage that's keeping you in poverty. Also, it is up to the individual, if they do think that their wage is keeping them in poverty, to acquire a skill set that is good enough to increase their wage and take them out of poverty, thus finding a new job or working with their employer to acquire a new skill set that would increase their wage and thus remove them from poverty. But you don't hear Bernie Sanders talk anything like that because the man's never worked before, at least for a private firm or a private company. He's only, again, worked for the government. So the man doesn't know how this stuff works. But you have Jordan Peterson say here, start a business, Bernie, and hire some workers. And he's exactly right. Bernie, you should maybe at this point in your life hire some people to work for you so that you have an understanding of how business works. On a general level, do I think that somebody has to go to this extent to learn about business and how it functions to be able to understand how wages work, things like that? No. That's kind of like that whole argument of, well, you're not going to understand racism because you're white and you can never be black and you can never experience true racism. I don't believe that. I think that you can understand concepts and content without ever actually having experienced it. So I don't think Bernie actually has to create a business and hire workers to understand the concept of how business works. You can just read a book or maybe just go get a degree in business or whatever it may be. Maybe just go get a job at a private company just for a little bit and understand how things work. But on a socialist level, when you have that idea of socialism and how it works and the redistribution of wealth, you're so radicalized that you actually can't formulate the idea of how wages work or how wages should work or how the economy should work because you already have a presupposed idea in your mind and you can't get past that. If he could get past that, I think he would understand. But you know, he's kind of had a business on his level in a way when he was running for the presidential campaign because he couldn't pay his employees enough money. He said he was going to pay them $15 an hour, and in actuality was only paying them $13 an hour and had to even cut some of their hours because he couldn't pay them enough money. So he got a little bit of taste of how this stuff works, that when you try to increase people's wage, whether they're worth it or not, if you don't have the money coming in, then you can't pay those workers for those hours that they're working. And you had a lot of his people, a lot of his staff working that overtime that were on salary that ultimately were not getting paid what they were worth or not getting paid for the hours. And so ultimately he had to cut hours back. But again, he's still pushing this stuff, even though having that experience, which tells me he learned nothing from business. He learned nothing how wages worked. But thank the Lord, you have somebody with some sort of intelligence here. You have Jordan B. Peterson that's coming to the rescue and saying, Bernie, start a business, hire some workers, and, you know, put your money where your mouth is. Furthermore, I find it hilarious that Bernie Sanders is always talking about the 1% or these massive corporations are always greedy and things like that. But there's corporations out there that actually agree with Joe Biden's and Bernie Sanders' increase of the minimum wage. Now, I'm not going to go too far into this because I've already done a full-length video on the minimum wage increase. If that's something that interests you, go ahead and click on it above. I give it more from an accountant's standpoint on the impact that minimum wage has on businesses. But we have here Amazon backs Bernie Sanders' minimum wage increase. Now, Amazon is on board for this minimum wage increase because, one, they already pay their employees $15 an hour. And because they're paying their employees what the federal minimum wage would be if they did increase it, they don't necessarily have to worry about their workers unionizing. And two is that it's going to hurt their competitors when the federal government, or if the federal government increases the minimum wage, because other businesses, from small businesses to medium range businesses, and even some large companies, aren't able to eat the costs of a wage increase in the same way that Amazon is. So Amazon is benefiting from Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden's policies of increasing the minimum wage. And so in a way, Bernie Sanders is helping the 1%. He is helping these capitalistic corporations, these massive corporations like Amazon, by increasing the minimum wage. And so it's kind of hilarious because he's doing somebody a service and he's doing others a disservice. Well, maybe Bernie Sanders isn't as socialist as he thought he was by helping out these massive corporations. But that is all the news I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It does help me out. Please also share this video on your social media platforms with your friends and family on who you think would find this type of video interesting. And with that being said, I'll see you here next time on The Bald Brad Show.